Well, good morning. Well, it's probably not such a good morning really. I'm on my way to meet Wendy, but when it was time to leave we got thick fog, so I delayed for a bit. Best be safe than sorry. And the fog pretty much cleared where I live, but of course, as I've said before, I live on top of a hill, so I suppose it was inevitable that when I dropped down into the Vale of Belvoir the fog was fairly thick again. But fortunately that stretch is by the canal, it's off-road, so there was no danger. Now I'm back on roads again now, but it is thinning. So today's ride has two firsts for me. It's the first ride in just over 3 weeks, and it's also the first ride for months on my Triban. Now the Triban I now have as my winter bike. It's kitted up with mud guards. I did think about bringing the Tempest out today because I love it so much, but glad I didn't, because it's actually quite mucky in places and damp. So I think the Triban's the right choice. It does feel strange after riding the Tempest. One of my least favourite things is to have to cross here at the A52. It's very, very busy, especially in the mornings and evenings, and quite dangerous. It's national speed limit along here, and usually it takes a lot longer than that to cross. And it's a popular route with walkers, dog walkers, people with children. One of the campaigns we've been working on is to have a safe crossing built here, and Wendy's been leading that campaign, and she's just been told that Highways England have funding to explore putting a footbridge in, which is fantastic. Now here's one of the problems we have in merry old England. Somebody has enjoyed their McDonald's and then discarded the packaging. I wish I could catch them at it. Now of course the funding's only for the preliminary work, so we've really got to make sure we get the funding for the actual bridge itself. So we've got plans to do lots with the local council, Sustrans, get the MP involved, so there's a lot to do, but hopefully we will see it through. Well, I'm glad to say the fog is lifting now, so it could be safe enough to get out on the country roads. Our plan today is probably to go to Southall, and there's a road out of Southall that I'm not really very keen on. It's a busy road, but it's the only way really that we've found, so I've planned to look at some alternative routes. It's a slightly longer route, but let's face it, it's about the journey, not the arrival. Despite having a fully charged battery, this GoPro's playing up this morning. Well, there's one word that sums up today, Wendy, and what's that?
Cold.
Yeah, and the second word?
Mud.
Mud.
A
Yeah.
lot of mud.
But yeah, it's cold. I've got my Triban gloves on, which I normally wear when it gets cold, but even they're struggling today. And Wendy, you've got two pairs of gloves on.
I've got two pairs. I've got a thin lining pair.
Yeah.
I think that the silk, aren't they, silk lining gloves, and then some others on top. And the same with my feet.
And you're still cold?
Yeah. The hands are good now, feet are not so good.
Yeah, so if anyone has tips for really good gloves, keep you nice and toasty warm, then
Which aren't ridiculous prices.
which aren't ridiculous price, yeah, then let us know. I've got the lobster claw gloves that I got from Planet X, and they're, you know, ridiculously cheap, but keep you nice and warm. They do make your hands sweat if it's not really cold, but
Yeah.
and they're waterproof, which is good. But there's nothing worse than being cold.
I was thinking the summer we'd have been glad about this.
Yeah. We were planning to do 60 miles today, but this weather looks like it could close in again later, get foggy, so probably best not to do that. And it suits me fine, because I have to say, after 3 weeks of not riding, probably 60 would have been a bit of a stretch today, I think, especially on this slightly heavier Triban. So we're just going to pop over to Newark. When Wendy was over there having one of her bikes fixed the other week, they showed an interest in her Redshift Arclight pedals, so we're going to pop in today, show them pedals, probably have a coffee somewhere, and then head back.
Good plan. Good morning.
We're just having a bit of an explore at the moment. Not been around this back part of Newark before. Not going to go far because we don't want to be this side of the river. But, it's quite interesting. Looks like it comes to an end and just ends up in fields, so not really going to go anywhere, but it's good to have a little recce. Well, we've popped into Newark Cycles and showed them the Redshift pedals. They were very impressed. Had a good chat with them in there about mud guards and so on. They're good bunch of people in there. Very helpful. So we then had a coffee break in Newark, and now we're heading back out of Newark. We're heading towards we're on the old A46, so we're heading towards sort of Leicester, Nottingham way, but we'll cut off shortly. The one thing we noticed is that as soon as we left the town, it got cold again. While we sat having our coffee, we decided we'd go a bit further because we were in the warm.
The comfort brake.
Well, I'm afraid that's where the cycling part of the video came to an abrupt end. The GoPro just totally gave up. It had been playing up all morning, and I know GoPros don't work terribly well in the cold, but this was only 5 degrees centigrade and it should have been working okay. Still got 90% battery. So I'd really had enough. The GoPro Hero 9 does everything I want it to do. The problem is it doesn't always do it when I want it to do it. So I prepared myself to talk to GoPro, and I must admit I thought I'd only got 12 months warranty, and I've had the product for 26 months, so I was just looking for some help. But speaking to their advisor, he reminded me that in fact in Europe we get 24 months. So I was still 2 months out of warranty, but he assured me that if we couldn't fix it with the firmware update he was going to give me, then they would replace it under warranty, which I thought was really good and generous of them. Unfortunately, it didn't go to plan afterwards. I had to make about 5 or 6 calls to their customer service department. I had terrible problems understanding the heavy accents. I ended up doing most of it on the chat system, but every time I went back to them I had to go through everything again, and in the end I got so fed up I just said to the final assistant, just read everything that's gone before and then talk to me. Anyway, the camera's gone back. It arrived in the Netherlands a couple of days ago, so I'm hopeful that soon in the new year I should get a replacement. I don't know what they'll replace it with. I presume they'll find another Hero 9 from somewhere, but we'll see, and hopefully we'll resume hostilities after that. A couple of weeks ago I arrived at a major milestone in my life. Frankly, given some of the things I've done, I'm surprised I've got this far. I've led a fairly adventurous life. I've had to go at most things. The one thing that I did most of was microlight flying, which I did for over 20 years. This is my first microlight, and as you'll see, the years since then haven't been kind to me. Any form of flying is inherently safe. The rules are very strict about the build of aircraft, the maintenance and so on. These days pilots have to be re-evaluated every couple of years, and to fly microlight we have to have a pilot's licence, so everything is done to make it safe for us and for people on the ground. The only danger that can creep in is, for example, I've owned 3 microlights and they've all been a 2-stroke engine, and 2-stroke engines can fail. They're not as reliable as a 4-stroke. So I did place myself, I suppose, in a certain amount of peril when I crossed the English Channel 5 times. We do cross the channel at the maximum altitude we're allowed to. There is an airway above, so we're limited to some extent. But normally we'll cross a pretty high level, and it means that if we had an engine failure we're likely to be able to go to one shore or another. But of course if the engine packs up in the middle, then it's a bit more of a problem. But as we say, only the pilot knows they're over water, not the engine. In the event of an engine failure, we're trained to land in a suitable place. I've landed in the field before now when the weather has turned, so it's quite a normal thing to do. But of course over water it becomes a bit more of a challenge. And the reason it was an odd number of crossings of the channel is because the last crossing was one way. I flew the aircraft all the way down to southwest France, and after flying it in France for a couple of years I then sold it there. But also we can do some stupid things. The mind gets in the way. And for example, on the way back from the first French trip, we were at Sandy in Bedfordshire. We'd stopped, we'd had some food, had a rest, and we'd just got an hour's flight back up to our field near Newark. And the weather turned. We could see we'd got some dark skies ahead of us, but instead of going back and checking the weather, phoning somebody ahead to see what the weather was doing, we were so close that we suffered from what we call get-home-itis, and we took off, and we ended up flying very, very close to an active thunderstorm, and that was frightening, I can tell you. I really did think that we were going to become a statistic at that time. I also had another situation where fog came in suddenly, and it was radiation fog. It wasn't fog that blew in, it was fog that just lifted from the ground and formed from the ground up. And again, I should have made sure that I really understood the forecast that day. You just can become a bit complacent. I've also done some other stupid things. I mean, look at the antics up on this roof. This is our house in France, and I was fitting a cowl on the chimney. Now, I should have got somebody in to do it, I suppose, but I thought, how hard can it be? It wasn't until I was up there and wanted to come down again that I realised I was frightened of heights, would you believe? And of course there's the additional danger from all the miles I ride each year on the roads, close passes and so on, and also having to contend with some crazy driving. And of course, being a friend of Paul Green, he'll always encourage me to do some crazy things, such as riding Death Valley. So given those antics, it's something of a miracle. A couple of weeks ago I reached my 70th birthday. We had a great weekend. We went down to Hampshire to see our sons, and amongst other things they gave me this t-shirt. Now, I wasn't sure about the message on there. I can only guess that the one that said "World's Greatest Dad" was probably out of stock. That's the only thing I can think of. Apart from the t-shirt my sons bought me with the dubious message, I had another really thoughtful gift. Wendy and her husband Terry have sponsored a mile of the Sustrans Cycling and Walking National Network in my name. That's really appropriate because wherever we go we try to use the national cycle routes. So to know that a mile is sponsored in my name is very special. Now I don't know where that mile is, but I'm sure Sustrans are bound to put a sign up saying you are entering Roy's Mile, so somebody let me know if you see it. In the title of this video I said that I'd tell you why the Triban had to go. Now I love the Triban bike, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. When you consider the specification you get for the price, it's unbeatable. However, when I got the Triban out for the winter and started to ride it again, I realised how much I missed riding the Tempest. There's no doubt that the titanium frame has a totally different feel to it. And I'd also kitted the bike up with the Redshift kitchen sink handlebars. It had also got the Redshift suspension seat post and the Redshift suspension stem. And the bike had been built to my spec. Plus, it's twice the price of a Triban, so it's no surprise that I wanted to keep on riding it. I took stock of my bikes, and although I understand N+1, I'd got 3 gravel bikes effectively. So I've got my Ribble CGR ALE, E-Assist, the Triban and the Tempest, plus I've got a mountain bike. Plus I'll be bringing back my Fuji road bike from France in the not too distant future. So I had to make some space, and the obvious bike to go would have to be the Triban. Now on Facebook we have an active Ride with Roy subscriber chat group. I mentioned on that group that I was going to sell the Triban, and one of the members contacted me, showed an interest. He lives just an hour away, so I took the bike over to him and he bought it. I'm delighted because I've upgraded that Triban quite a bit, so it's, you know, it's a higher spec than it comes from the shop. And this man, after meeting him, I know that he's going to appreciate the bike and it'll live on in good hands. So everybody's happy. I've got some space and this man's got his new bike. Now as I film this, it's actually Christmas Day, so we've reached the end of 2022. It's been obviously a very strange year for many reasons, but from my point of view it's been a good year. We've had some great cycling outings. I think the highlight had to be the coast to coast that Wendy and I did, and we've had many other trips that we've shared on video. The other thing I'd like to say at this point is thank you to every one of you that has viewed the video. I was very proud to have launched Kevin Baker's Tyre Glider, and that video has now reached almost 200,000 views, and I love reading your comments. For somebody to say that the videos have inspired them to get out on their bike, for me that's job done. It makes me very happy, and it's worth the time and effort that goes into making the videos. I do try to answer every one of your comments, and I'll do that for as long as I can. I also know that some of you are suffering from illnesses or recovering from illnesses, and I just want to say to each and every one of you, I wish you a speedy recovery, and I hope in 2023 you see better health and do more of what you enjoy. So we're about to enter 2023, who knows what it's going to bring, but I've certainly got a lot planned for next year. And I think turning 70 is quite a big milestone, and it makes you realise that you're coming to the twilight years of your life. I mean, I hope I've got many more ahead of me, especially now I'm not doing so many stupid things, but it makes you focus on doing things that you plan to do now rather than putting them off to another day. So I'm certainly going to get stuck in 2023. The other thing I've thought about is how making these videos has improved my cycling. And the reason I say that is that if I'm planning to go out and make a video, I'm going to make sure that the ride is interesting and try to take you to places that maybe you don't know about. I know that many of our American viewers enjoy seeing the British countryside and so on. So I think it's improved the quality of the rides we go on. Instead of just pounding around the same old routes all the time, we'll sometimes travel to see something a bit different. So I hope you've enjoyed last year's videos. I really enjoy making them and I love to hear your comments. So please keep watching if you can. And if you know anyone else that you think will enjoy the videos, please share with them. But until next year, I'll say goodbye to you. I wish you good health and I wish you safe riding. See you soon.